What's up everyone, it's Josh with another deck profile from YCS Dortmund. Unfortunately not a back-to-back victory one. It is a third place one, which I'm still really happy about, especially considering how bad I played in top 4. I just rewatched that live on stream with my chat, and it was humbling. I still need to, I need to get better. I didn't play like a back-to-back YCS champion, so here we are with a third place deck profile. I played tier limits. That is because I tried really hard to find something else, but I just didn't find anything that seemed like it was better at beating the current meta game. And the tier mirror, actually, the more I played it, the less I minded it. I thought it was actually fine. So I'll just show you the list. The only thing before we start, it is 41 cards, which I don't think is optimal, but I just didn't know what to cut, and Pack told me just run 41, don't worry about it. So I listened to Pack, it was okay. And yeah, here's the deck. I played 3 Rhino Heart. That's one of the cards I considered cutting, but I really liked milling it because it plays around Bestials really well. So I kept 3 and kept 41. And there is a third Havness somewhere and 3 Merly. So just all 12. I mean, these 9 are always standard. I think 1 Rhino Heart is potentially cuttable, but I decided to run with 3. I played 6 Bestials. Only Druids and Magnamut. I decided to go with this route because I really like Soronier, but I ended up deciding to play Herald instead. I do like these a lot, of course. These were mandatory. I think Soronier was also good, but as your only Bestial, as your only form of hand trap, I felt like Soronier might not be good enough sometimes, whereas these two have like bonus effects that really matter often. And the chance of drawing 2 Bestials doesn't go up that much higher by just adding Soronier. It goes up a little bit, but not that much. I figured it was okay to just have the best ones in the deck. And I decided to play, this is a proxy, my bad, I had to give it back. Thanks to Pazim for lending me beautiful ultimate Herald of Orange Lights, because this is what this was. I decided to play Herald of Orange Light, and with that, I decided to play an Ishizu package of 3 Mudora, 3 Keldo, 3 Kelbeck, and 1 Agido. So 10 of these. I decided to keep Herald in the deck because I felt like it was one of the more unfair cards in this deck, as opposed to like a Soronier, which is like really good in the mirror match, but not in the same way that Herald is good in like every single matchup. Like if you draw Herald with one of these going second, it's just completely broken. If you draw it with one of these, it's also really good in the mirror match. It can negate like opposing Bestials. It's very good against Flunder and Shifter, all these types of things. Yeah, if it was only for the mirror match, I think maybe Soronier would be better over Herald, and then you can cut the Agido and make it 40. That would also be reasonable. But I decided to main deck the Herald, and I liked them a lot over the course of the weekend. That's it for the monsters. There's nothing too fancy here. No Diviner, no Ghost Bells, like I said, no Soronier. All of those are solid options. I just decided to keep it as cookie cutter as possible, which ended up being fine for me, because like the mirror match is mostly about knowing how to pilot it rather than having a huge deck building edge. I played 3 Pearl Rhino, of course. I played 2 Scream, which could have been 1 in hindsight to make it 40, but I do like the card. I think it's a very solid mill. Going first, very often you go Kid Kalos Search for a monster instead of the Scream, or a trap card, and then you really want to hit the Scream in your mills to make sure you have the trap card ready. I played Heartbeat because I was afraid of Mystic Mine. I ended up playing against a couple of Mystic Mine decks, but like for example against Simon in top 64, he mined me and then he milled my Heartbeat with Kelbeck or Agido, and then I couldn't out it anyways. But I don't know if I would have played this again, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing either, because yeah, it was like, yeah. The Instant Fusion, my punishment for playing 41 was definitely that I didn't see Instant Fusion very often. I know it doesn't change much in the numbers, it just felt like that. I think I activated this card 2 or 3 times over the entire weekend. Terraforming for another Pearl Rhino, and then I played 2 Soliacs. I decided to not main deck Crime because I think Crime is way too bad going second. That's why I sided it for going first. I prefer Soliac because it's a way better mill. Going second, it's a great discard for Rhino Heart because it gets you another monster in hand. And just making sure that when you mill stuff like these 2 together in a mill 5, you still have a target for Scream to search. Felt really good. And yeah, just in general, being able to have this in your opening hand as a discard for Rhino Heart and stuff like that ended up being fine. I like this a lot. So yeah, it's 41. There's nothing too crazy about this deck, but yeah. So extra deck, shout outs to Steve Chief for the hookup on these. These are nice. I played Kit Kalos, Rule Kalos, and Kaleido Heart. This is pretty standard. I see some people running with a second kit. I think 14 cards in this extra deck are mandatory, and then there's 1 flex spot that could be a second Kit Kalos, but I decided for it not to be. Dragostapelia, Garura, and Muddragon. These 2 are self-explanatory. Especially with Bestials, you can make a rank 6 out of Garura, which is nice. This card is very good in the mirror match especially. And Dragostapelia, I still think it's mandatory because it lets you recycle these 2 a lot easier. And also it's really good into non-tier matchups like Flunder and Sprite. This card is really good against. I consider all of these mandatory. Of course, these are very good with the Merly interactions, and this is great in the mirror match, of course, and in other matchups. Redoer, Baguska, and Dweller are all three also mandatory, I think. This, of course, mainly against Flunder if you get shifted, or against Sprite if you get shifted. Dweller is, of course, broken in the mirror match, and Redoer, I think, is very strong in the more grindy matchups where, like, if you get hand trapped back and forth with like Bystials, making a Dweller after you've gotten Bystial twice doesn't really seem that great. And in those spots when you have like Cher and Reinhardt on the board, you'd much rather make a Redoer. So I consider all three mandatory, as well as Zeus, of course. Like Dweller into Zeus is one of the few win conditions you actually have if your opponent goes off in the mirror match going first and you don't have a bunch of interactions on their turn. I played both Beatrice and Wallow. Wallow is the one that I don't consider mandatory in this extra deck. Like these 14 I think should always be played. Wallow could be something else. The reason why I think Beatrice is mandatory is like when you have two level 6s on the board, you want to always be able to have a strong rank 6 option, and Beatrice in this deck is always good. No matter the matchup, almost no matter the situation, Beatrice will always be good because it can always send something useful on your turn and then another thing on their turn. It's always strong. Whereas Wallow is like more of a situational kind of card. Like sometimes it's way better than Beatrice, sometimes it's way worse. And so I consider Beatrice the more consistently strong option, but Wallow is also pretty good. The reason why I ended up deciding to just play both is because the last card in my extra deck would have probably just been an out to Avramax or something, like a card like Underworld Goddess could have been it. And the thing about Wallow is that it can also out Avramax, of course not himself, but he boosts every of your monster by 100 for each card in your opponent's graveyard. And Avramax only gains attack when he battles against special summon monsters. So if your opponent has a bunch of cards in the grave, you can literally just out Avramax with a normal summon Rhino Heart that's 2000 from Pearl of Rhino, and then you can reduce the Avramax by 500 with Scream as well. And then if they have 5 cards in the grave, you can just attack it. That's why I like the Wallow as well. I never summoned Wallow. Everything else was summoned throughout the tournament. Wallow was not summoned a single time. The side deck, I played 3 Dogwood because I was scared. I played 1 Scatter Shot because I was scared. I never used it. It's a level 2 monster though, which is crucial for your Sprite extra deck, you know. Banshee and 2 Zombie Worlds. This should have probably even been more of these. Like these were insane against Flunder. I decided to play 3 Dark Hole as well. Dark Hole was solid, but I could definitely see myself playing like a 3rd Zombie World and even more Banshees instead. Dark Hole has more uses against something like Sprite or Ibli, or Raz Disciple, or Ido the Magical Force, or whatever it's called. That's why I chose to keep the Dark Holes in, because also like Sprite, I saw a lot of Sprite people, well, I didn't see a lot of Sprite people in general, but the people I did see playing Sprite did stuff like Mannequin Cat summon End of Anubis instead of going for Toad, which you can really punish with Dark Hole. So I don't regret playing Dark Hole, it's just I want to point out how insane the Zombie Worlds were, because like on its own, it can win against Flunder going second if they don't have Cosmic, because like you can just literally activate it and then you don't care, you can just normal summon, you don't care about the trap or the field spell, you just normal summon, attack the barrier statue and start playing in main phase 2. Of course it makes it awkward for you sometimes because you can't make Kid Kalos with your Tear Elements from the graveyard. You can still use the Tear Elements from hand because those are still Aqua, which is of course not ideal, but it still works out. Like you can play under Zombie World way better than they can. So I definitely won a couple games just off the back of Zombie World against Flunder, because I played against 3 Flunders. I played 2 Talents just because it helps with siding patterns, because there's a couple of matchups where going first in the mirror match, you want to take out some of the mill 5s, like Agido, for example, should not be in your deck when you go first in the mirror. And then you want to take out like a Druid's Worm, for example, because like you don't want that many Bystials when you go first. And you just take these, which in the mirror match going first, if you go uninterrupted, you win the game anyways, because you just go for full board plus Dweller. And if you don't go uninterrupted, this card is literally just Pot of Greed, or you just take a monster that they fusion summon, so it's really strong. And then it also just like randomly comes in handy in other matchups. Like because we main deck 6 Bystials, there's a couple of matchups where we really want to take a bunch of stuff out of our deck, and then this is like pretty much good or solid in every single matchup, so it helps with the patterns a lot. 1 Call by the Grave. I think this card is still really strong, this format. It just happens to not be that good in the mirror match because they can dodge it with Bystials, or they can dodge it with the Shufflers mainly. It's like if you try to Call by the Grave Herald of Orange Light and they have a Shuffler in the graveyard, they can just dodge it. It's still really important against other decks because most rogue decks were sitting on Shifter, and so you just like called by the Grave Dash Shifter and proceed to win the game, because your deck is just stronger than theirs. So I think it was still correct to play this card. Set rotation is insane, honestly. I saw Zombie World in a lot of decks, but I didn't see this card a lot. This card is just like insane, because it outs Mystic Mine against Flunder. Even if they have Cosmic Cyclone for your Zombie World, you still get rid of their field spell, which is huge in the grind games. It can do random stuff like beat evenly against Flunder. If you go first, have this card, you can like start playing, then you set up Zombie World and you give them a dead card. That means they can't evenly you, which is nice. No, it's great. This card is great. This card should always be played alongside Zombie World. It's very neat. And then the last card in my side deck was the one Crime. For going first, I genuinely think I activated this card maybe once or twice, because Bestials were literally flying left and right this tournament. Like, I don't think I ever went first and just made my board uninterrupted. It was just always a war of nutrition where like hand traps were flying back and forth and everything, and it just never ended up being like, oh, just go straight up full combo and everything. Sometimes I was able to like randomly mill a Scream though and get it, which was nice, but very often I would also prefer Soliak in grindy games. But I still think this is necessary because it helps against like evenly, it helps against Mystic Mine decks, because Soliak doesn't really help against someone who's on Mystic Mine, and that was nice. So I was really happy with that portion of the side deck. This portion didn't really come up very much. This one I used 0 times. This one I used, I think, twice, but never really felt like it mattered much. Felt like it was games I was going to win anyways. I would have liked more Zombie Worlds because those were really nice against Flounder. I really think the philosophy behind the side deck should be good against most of the rogue decks, because the main deck is very much catered towards beating the mirror match and being good in the mirror match. If you want to go even harder against the mirror, you could replace the orange lights with Saroniers and then cut an Agido to make it 40. I think that would be something I would try if I was mostly worried or only worried about the mirror match, and then focus the side deck even harder on the rogue stuff, because you don't have orange light in the main deck. But yeah, that's it. I hope you liked the deck profile. I'm sorry for everyone that was rooting that I couldn't bring it home a second time in a row. That would have been crazy, but the sheer possibility of a back-to-back YCS win caused me to be very nervous in top 4 and actually misplay multiple times. So gonna try and come back stronger the next time, and maybe, who knows, maybe I'll get another chance at a back-to-back at some point in the future. We'll see. But yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Twitch in the description. You know, shout outs to E-Man and all the good stuff, and you know how it goes. So hope you enjoyed it, and bye bye everyone.